I have been out of school for a few years. Should I use a writing statement from my MSW program or something I have written for my current agency? So that's a great question, and a question that I actually asked during the application process. I had been out of my MSW for a little over 5 years at that point. So I don't even think I had the computer that I had written my last MSW papers on, and I surely didn't save them because I didn't realize I'd be using them again someday. So I was a little uncertain. I'm also a first gen college student, first PhD student. And so I didn't really have a lot of people to ask. So I reached out to the staff at UMB and they were so generous with their answers. So I'm hoping to impart that on you. So you can do kind of anything you think works. What I ended up doing was an MSW paper that I'd written, and I don't know if it was the best work I'd ever done of all time, but it showed that I was able to research and look at. It was a behavioral intervention that I was able to look at it in a systematic and logical way and make recommendations for how to use this particular intervention. And then I felt like because it had been written so long ago, I wanted to provide something current. So I also provided a redacted clinical assessment that I had written about a child in the foster care program that I worked in. And this was helpful because it showed that I was able to research, even though I was not researching in an academic sense. For instance, I was researching to make clinical recommendations. It showed that I was able to gather information, synthesize it, and then make recommendations and come up with conclusions based on what I had learned and what I had gathered. And I think that's what people are really looking for. So I chose to do both. You can do one or the other. And, there's plenty of options that you can go with. And certainly if you're stuck, anyone at the school would be happy to help you figure that. What is a good example for a writing statement, and what skills are reviewers assessing? So for those of us who were out of our masters for a long period of time, or maybe no longer have access to the papers we've written in our master's program, there's a lot of other options aside from, handing in a MSW final paper or thesis or something like that. Um, you could look at submitting clinical or legal assessments that have been redacted. Those could show some of the skills that people are looking for around abilities to synthesize information and make recommendations that are beneficial to clients, and that translates well into macro research that we do. You could do agency reports. So if you work at an agency, and you track what happens in programs, or you track what happens with staff or volunteers. If those are well written reports and you've written them, there's something that you can submit to the PhD process. Could also consider policy briefs or op-eds, things you've written for news or popular publications. So you don't necessarily have to be submitting a peer-reviewed journal article or MSW paper to really show the skills that you have, because likely you've been using them this whole time, just in a different setting. And in terms of what skills are reviewers assessing for, I think that the main thing is that you can create a interesting, structured piece of literature, and that you can make conclusions, you can assemble knowledge together in a logical way, that you can show that you have the ability to think and write, and that you can convey that ability. And I think you can show that through a variety of sources, as I just described. And really not limiting yourself to just that typical student style writing sample.